Sometimes people leave you halfway through.
Cyrille Aimee, want to talk to you about just your kind of entire experience with music. Let's go back to where you grew up. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in France mostly, in a little village close to Paris, about an hour south of Paris. A little tiny little village, 2,000 people, cobblestones, the river, and it's the village where Django Reinhardt used to live.
And there's still a festival there. Is that an annual festival?
Yeah, there's an annual Django Reinhardt festival there every summer. And gypsies from all across Europe come to honor him because he was a gypsy. And so it's kind of like a pilgrimage almost, where they come in their caravans by hundreds, and they set camp in the fields in Samois. Samois is the name of the town. And they go to his tomb because he's buried there. They play music around the campfire until the morning comes, and that's how I started to get into music, I guess.
Let's go back up even earlier.
Yeah, tell me.
What were your first sort of memories of music? What kind of things were you first participating in music? What first drew you to music, do you think? So before all that, I guess there was always music in my house because my parents loved to dance. My mother's from Dominican Republic, and she loves to dance salsa, merengue, bachata, and a lot of other things. She loved to put Michael Jackson and to look at his moves on the live shows and to try and copy them. And my father loves my mom, so he likes to dance too. Yeah. And so my sister and I would always dance in the living room. So for me, music was, made for dancing when I grew up. Mm-hmm. What about an instrument or playing something? Was there an instrument in the home or did you experiment with instruments?
Well, my dad kind of has a frustration of, he's got the artist frustration. He's collected many instruments. He couldn't play one of them. And so there was always old guitars and there was always a piano, but we would really my sister and I just play them for fun, not knowing what we were doing. I do remember though that every time we would finish watching a movie, I would go to the piano and play the melody of the theme song, that we had heard in the movie, like right away. But it was just for fun. I never thought of making music with it per se, like that's what I want to do, until I met the Gypsys.
So you had that facility and you'd witnessed that you had it, but it had not become like an obsession or even a major thing.
Yeah.
Until you met these players and who came for the Reinhardt Festival.
Yeah. Well,
how did you meet those folks?
Well, see, it's the thing is they come and they come in and set camp in the fields and everything, but they stay amongst each other because it's a very different community and people are almost scared of them. People don't mess with the Gypsys. They don't mix. And Gypsys are a very different culture. And so I had always seen them every year, but, I did my own thing. I was a little girl. I would go to the festival just because they had churros there, and I didn't really care about the music. But one summer, I was 13, and I was riding my bike around town, and this little gypsy girl comes to me, and she starts to talk to me, and I couldn't understand anything she was saying because they have a very thick accent. And she was like, "On va faire un tour." And I was like, "What? On va faire un tour?" I'm like, "Quoi?" And then I understood she was saying, "On va faire un tour," which means, can I use your bike to go on a ride? And I was like, okay. And so she got on the bike and she went like, beep, and she whistled, and 3 of her friends came and they all got on the bike. And I was like, whoa, And then they were like, oh, you come on the bike too. And so I got on the bike. There were total 4 of us on the bike. And we went down this cobblestone street that's like this steep. And then we arrived at the end. We almost fell in the river. And so we became friends, you know. And then I went to their campsite and I discovered their way of life. And I was just so fascinated, you know, because I'm 13 years old and I meet kids my age who don't even know what homework is because they don't go to school. They don't have to wake up in the morning to go to school. And you know, when I have to be like, I have to go, guys, I have homework to do. And they're like, you have what to do? But why? Do you like it? No. Then why do you do it? And so it was for me very fascinating. I had this little video camera that I had just been gifted, and I was just filming them all the time, filming them doing their dishes, filming them cleaning the caravan, filming them. And the parents would be like, Cyrille, come to my caravan. I need you to help fill out some social security papers, because I knew how to read and write, and then they didn't know. And so I was filling papers for them and everything. And it's by falling in love with them and their culture that little by little I understood their music. I understood their music was exactly a reflection of how they live their life. They live every day like it's their last. They can't see further than a week. They don't know where they'll be in a week. And their music is the same. It's all in the present moment, all improvised, all just for fun.
At a certain point, you picked up the nickname Sweet Sue.
Yeah, that was actually because, so when I first started hanging with those girls, then I met one of the brothers, and he started teaching me the guitar, and in exchange I was teaching him to read, and he was teaching me the comping, the gypsy comping, which is like you know. And his big brother, who was the virtuoso of the family, asked me to learn a song one day because they knew that I took English in class, and so the song was Sweet Sue. And I remember it was raining, and so we couldn't all fit in the caravan, so we all went into this big abandoned bus that was parked there on the field, and we all cramped in there, and they played the song and I sang Sweet Sue. And when I saw the smiles on everyone's faces and just how much more direct the connection was from me to them than when I was playing the guitar, I just thought, this is what I want to do. I just want to sing, make people happy. And from that day, they called me Sweet Sue.
So the veil kind of lifted and you could see clearly this was a path that you could pursue with some success, or at least it seemed interesting to you.
Well, I didn't think of it that way. I didn't think of it as a career or as something that might work or not work. I just thought, okay, I want to do more of this, so I got to learn more songs.
Yeah.
Really, just that was just the logic for me.
Yeah. And so they were there only a bit. Did you find other people to play with fairly quick, or did you start to sing with, or how did you pursue it from there?
Yeah, then I started to take all those Django recordings that I had been listening to and trying to look for songs with lyrics. So Sweet Sue was one of them, but there's not a lot of them. There was like After You've Gone, a version with Django. That's all I knew about jazz was Django. So I just dug in there and I was like, wow, there's not a lot of stuff with lyrics. And someone gave me a 4 CD box set of Ella Fitzgerald. Oh. And that completely knocked my socks off. I learned every single note on those 4 albums. And I was just, that's it. Now, after that, I wanted to come to America to learn the American songbook, just to learn more. And that's what I did.
And you did.
Yeah.
Well, before you left France, though, did you have a chance to perform some? Did you get some performance experience?
Yeah, so in France, a little bit. I performed with the Gypsys a lot, and I started when I lived in Paris. I went to this school for a year, the American School of Modern Music, and so I met some people there. But I wasn't gigging or anything. I was also recording. I was working with a producer, recording some pop songs. Mm-hmm. Well, you're bringing me back, Fred. You're bringing me really back right now.
Well, that's what we'd like to get there.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't really get on a scene per se until I left France and went to live in Dominican Republic, which is my mother's country.
Yeah. So
that's where I went before coming to America. I had been there. I had applied for this show, sent a video in for this show in France called Star Academy, which is Star Academy. It's like imagine American Idol, but for French.
Right.
And I had gotten in. So it starts with thousands of auditions, people auditioning, then hundreds, then less and less. And it's not just singing; it's also acting and dancing, and then they choose 16 people. And those 16 people go into this castle that is filmed 24/7. And you have all these classes and you get ready for the prime every week that is like on live television. And every week someone gets booted. And so I was one of the 16 people, and I was ready to go in the castle. We had already done a music video for the opening of the show. I was on a cover of magazines, and for an 18-year-old girl, it was like a dream come true. And then they gave us the contract. They gave us the contract after all the auditions, like literally 2 weeks before going into the castle. You have to sign this contract now. And it's this thick, and you're basically giving your life away for 10 years. And I had just discovered jazz, which is not something that they were going to let me do. And I already knew it because I just could sense that I was not really the one to choose the songs that I was going to sing. And I was just starting to be so obsessed with this kind of music, this new genre and so it took a lot of thinking and a lot of courage to refuse. I refused at the last minute, and I went to live in my mom's country because I had met a piano player there during that summer him and his wife had fallen in love with me. They had met me at a jam session, and they were like, you can stay and live with us and we'll play together. And my parents at the time were living in Singapore. So I went to live in Dominican Republic, which was the opposite of the planet. And once there, a lot of stuff happened. They started I was not allowed to sing with anyone else but him. And so it was almost like signing that contract, but in a different way.
Yeah, without all the benefits, right?
Yeah. And so then I kind of left their house and went to live with this aunt of mine. And I started gigging a lot because I had no money. And so I met this other piano player in the school, and I started teaching in this school with him. And in this year and a half, I learned so much because I was kind of the only jazz singer on the island. And so I had like 8 gigs a week, and I was really doing a lot of it. But I wanted to meet other people that were doing this. And that's why I wanted to come to America to get my ass kicked, you know?
Right. You were in Santo Domingo?
Yeah, I was in Santo Domingo.
So you must have researched the colleges and universities with jazz studies somewhere near New York City.
I did, and I applied to a few of them. And but it was all so expensive. And so when I visited SUNY Purchase College, I loved it because it was not in Manhattan. You know, I come from a small little village in the middle of the forest. And so Manhattan seems very scary for me. And Purchase College is in the middle of the forest. And there was no vocal program there. But I still got an audition and I still got in.
And that kind of worked to your advantage in the sense that you went through the regular sort of curriculum that instrumentalists go through, and which gave you a lot wider, broader education than many vocalists who are kind of shoved over in the singer corner.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely one of the things. Is I was the only singer in the whole department and the only girl too. But
oops.
Yeah. But I really got to be immersed in the lingo of the instrumental jazz. And you know, also it was, I wish I had I mean, I don't regret anything, but it was really to the extreme where the teachers never really talked about vocalists. We didn't study any vocalists. We didn't talk about lyrics. It was really all about instrumental jazz. And I remember the teachers, there was this one teacher who would come in the class and he would be like, all right, lady and gentlemen, are we ready? Like, it was really kind of like, what am I doing here, you know? But it taught me a lot, and I think I developed my ear extremely during that time because I had to. Because in France, we don't have high school jazz band like in America. It's a very common thing to have kind of like a jazz band in the school before going to college, right?
Right, a swing band, a little lab band, a jazz band, some kind of a band that plays other than the regular band. Material.
In France, we don't have that. And so when I arrived in college, I didn't know theory. I didn't know how to read music. And all my classmates did. So the teacher would be like, all right, guys, so if you take the B flat minor and you put it over an F sharp bass, then it's, and I'm like, wait, B flat, what is B flat? B, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. Okay, so it's C, B flat, and then like he already went to something else. So I had to stop trying to understand it, and I just trying to hear it. And so I went 4 years in college pretending I could read. For all my finals, I would be like, here, the teacher, you know, like would put the chart for me to sight read, and he would play, and I would just hear, you know, the key that he's playing and see if the little note is coming up or coming down, or is coming really up or really down, and just try to guess. And I probably made mistakes, but I passed every time because just I would rely all on my ears. And yeah, when I graduated, I told him, listen, you should have a beginner's class for theory, because some people arrive to college and they don't know how to read, and then you get lost. And I still don't know how to read, and I went 4 years in college.
You got 4 years of sight singing and ear training nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, that. What about? Is that where you first encountered the looper?
Yeah.
Purchase.
Yeah.
And so that gave you some sense of arrangement if you started working with that.
Well, I mean, you know, arranging has nothing to do with reading, you know.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's
as another area of formal.
And definitely
it's one that you also undertook in a way there.
Yeah, and definitely, you know, being all the time surrounded with instrumentalists and you know, seeing them being able to do chords and stuff, and I was like, I want to do chords too. And I always had this in mind, this machine that could overlap all my voices so that I can do chords. And one day I saw in a restaurant, I saw a guitar player using one, And I was like, that's what I want. And I went to the store and got one, and I was blown away by how much fun I could get with this toy, you know? Like I could spend hours on it.
Yeah, it must take, I mean, in addition to being fascinating, it's also pretty complicated to get real rhythm going on that. I mean, to get the rhythm of how to handle that thing, isn't it? It didn't take a lot of practice.
Well, really the first thing, the annoying thing about it is learning the machine, learning how the machine works, you know, reading the manual.
Right.
And then technically the first loop that you lay down is the hardest one, because that's the one that has to kind of start on the beat and then loop around and end on the same beat, or else it's going to be crooked every time. But then the other ones that you overlap on there, just the first beat is set, the first loop is set. And that's also kind of the hard part about it, is that when you're playing around in your house, whatever, but when you're performing live with it, there's no room for mistakes. Right. Which is the opposite of jazz, you know?
Right. We just take a mistake and turn it into something beautiful. That's right.
Yeah. In the
quote
loop,
unquote
you
mistake.
have to be really, really concentrated, because it's a machine and it's just gonna be stupid. You know, it's not like you're playing with a guitar player who's gonna follow you and you can follow him. It's a machine, it's a robot. So it does what you tell it, and if you press the wrong button or whatever, the mistake comes back every time, you know.
Relentless.
Yes. Yeah. So you have to be extremely focused.
Yeah. So say keep a sharp focus and concentration going to make all that work. So what about getting into New York, into Manhattan to hear music? Did you have opportunity to do that a lot?
Yeah, it was actually like a whole adventure, because Purchase is in Westchester, which is on the Metro North, right, about 40 minutes from Grand Central. And so once you get, you take the Metro North to White Plains, then once you get to White Plains, you take the shuttle that takes you to the campus. So it's a whole ordeal. And so the last Metro North is 1 a.m., which is when the jam starts, you know? Yeah. So I would go to, take my shuttle, take the Metro North to Grand Central, take the subway to the Village, go to Smalls, and jam all night, and then go to Fat Cat and sleep on a couch until the first train at 6 a.m. Wow. To go back to Metro North. Every weekend. I had a gig every Saturday that went until 1 a.m. So it went until I couldn't get the train. So I would do that every Saturday. Spend the whole night at Fat Cat on a couch. And that's one of these nights is the first time I heard Roy Hargrove. I was sleeping in a couch. It was like 4 a.m. There was no one there, just me. And I hear this beautiful sound, and I wake up, and it was just Roy there. Playing with this piano player, Sasha Perry. Just them two playing a beautiful ballad. I think it was Darn That Dream. And just me in the audience. And they didn't even know I was there.
That was at the Fat Cat?
Yeah, when Fat Cat used to be 2 rooms, it had a wall. Now it's one big room, and you can't really hear the music. But there used to be the game room and the music room.
Yeah, the time I got there, it had opened up, and it was foosball and bowling and
it's difficult to hear the music now.
And ping pong, I think, or pool or something. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what all they did have.
Ping pong, all of those, all of the above.
So you got Smalls. Was Spike Wilner the guy there in those days?
Not yet. I was by his side when he bought it.
Very cool.
Yeah. That was more than 10 years ago. I guess he bought it maybe like 10 years ago.
What about your classmates at Purchase?
They still be
group.
Yeah, we were still best friends, and we play together, and so I had this gig that I would do every Saturdays. That's also one of the gigs that I learned the most from, because it was a restaurant gig. So it's difficult because you have to learn how to keep the attention of the people, you know, because they're not here for that. They came to have dinner. And it was just bass, drums, and voice for 4 hours every Saturday. So no chordal instrument, just bass, drums. And it was a drummer's gig, and he would hire me and a bass player. And so it formed me so much musically, because to keep the people attentive when there's no chords, you have to outline the chords yourself. You have to kind of guide them through the harmony, you know, on top of the bass. And also I was the only really blowing instrument, so I would just blow for 4 hours. That's what I was doing. So it taught me a lot in terms of improvising and harmony and just my ear. And also it was the first time that I started talking to the audience, because it was a drummer's gig. And I remember at some point he was like, okay, you introduce the band today. And I was like, no, I can't talk, I just sing. And I was so shy, and it was the beginning of my process of learning how to be more present on stage, because it's a whole skill that I didn't realize also was part of the job, you know?
Yeah. Well, you do have a wonderful ability, which I've witnessed at Snug Harbor. And I think this goes all the way back to the first time you're singing with Sweet Sue with the Gypsys. You have this ability to connect with people through song.
Well, that's what I realized when I started to more and more, you know, learn to be on stage. Is just that's what I want. Is I want to connect with people, and the more you are open, the more you connect. So when I started singing and I was very shy and putting my hand in front of my face like this and my microphone here, I was robbing myself from all the connection I could receive. And so yeah, now I love looking at the audience while I'm telling the story and just connecting. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I have witnessed you, you know, pull the attention of 85 people at Snug, very disparate folks, right down and hold it for 75 minutes. And it's very rewarding to watch. Very interesting to see.
Thank you.
So you went straight, you finished the school. Did you move right on to New York City, into the city, take on the big city then?
Yeah. Me and 5 of my classmates moved into an apartment in Brooklyn, and we're all day searching for jobs on Craigslist. And we did some really various kinds of jobs to make money. And little by little, I had to do less of those because I was doing more music, and then none of those, and just music.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a difficult city. It's a lot of hustling, and the rent is insane. And but I'm glad I did it when I had that fire, you know, because it takes that fire. You need it.
Yeah, it's someone put it recently. I heard it's both exhilarating and exhausting.
Yeah.
The paradox of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And how long were you there? Just pursuing music? A decade?
I was there for 10 years. Yeah.
And then to New Orleans. I want to go ahead and jump to that because we're getting a little short on time.
Oh.
What was? How much did you know about New Orleans? And what made this a beacon?
Well, I knew about New Orleans what people know about New Orleans, which is what is said about it, but you never really know until you get there. I just realized now that I didn't even know anything about New Orleans. I came to visit just because I had heard so much about this town, and I came to visit with 2 buddies of mine for 3 days. And I was completely smitten. It was like the city just grabbed me, as if I had for the first time put a pair of pants that fit, you know. And I felt kind of like what I felt when I first met the Gypsys, meaning, you know, the way they make music just because it feels good, because they need it, like air in their lungs, like just for fun, you know. It's a family thing, it's a people thing. And in New York, I was starting to forget that. I was starting to not feel that. And it's because it's such a difficult city and everything is so fast that I feel like sometimes the musicians kind of forget why they're a musician in the first place. You know, when you fall in love with playing music, you don't want to do it because you want to be the best or you want a great career or you don't do it because you have to pay rent. You do it because it feels so good that there's nothing else you want to do. And when I came to New Orleans, I just felt that I found myself again.
And you found again that place where music is a natural part of life. It's not like art is here and life is here.
Exactly.
It's all together. It comes up together. Each inspires the other.
Yeah.
And yeah, it felt like home, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, and also just even the culturally, the I can feel the French and Caribbean,
right,
which are both part of who I am, you know, and just everything just resonates with me. The colors and the people are so generous with their time, generous with their home and with their emotions and their feelings, and I just really fell in love with it, and that's where I knew, okay, this is where I want to live.
Yeah, and not to mention that there's a wonderful community of fantastic musicians.
Incredible. And that's the craziest thing, is that it's almost a secret. You have to come down here to witness it, because it's not advertised everywhere, because people are not constantly on their phones posting about it. You have to go there and experience it, because people here really are in the moment, and there's kind of this real space for being human here that I can't feel in big cities.
Yeah. Well, speaking of deeply human and humanity, you have this connection, and a pretty deep one, with Stephen Sondheim and his work, including your most recent CD, but it goes earlier than that, all the way back to New York.
Yeah. Well, I discovered Sondheim's music not so long ago. I was casted in a show 3 or 4 years ago by the Wynton Marsalis Orchestra, and the two female singers in the show were myself and Bernadette Peters, who is Sondheim's muse. And so that's how I discovered his music, and I completely fell in love with it, and especially with the lyrics. It was after spending a lot of time singing the American songbook, the lyrics can become a little repetitive, a little old school, and Sondheim's just opened a whole new window to me. Also, as a person who never really dug deep into musical theater, you know, going into that world through Sondheim was very special. And so I just fell in love with his music. And when I went to research what other songs I could cover, I realized there were so many. So that's why I thought of the idea of doing a tribute album to him. And when I was working on the album, I specifically didn't want to know where the songs were from, who the character was singing, and what the context, because I wanted to make them my own. And so I broke all the rules that you're not supposed to break in musical theater. And I think that's why he liked it.
And he did really like it, because he came
did.
to Birdland to see the set.
He came twice to see the show at Birdland, and he was crying. And I sat at the table with him, and he's the genius at the table, and he's the one asking me all the questions. he's the one asking me, but how do they know when they have to improvise? And how did you take this section and make it longer? And how do you, like, incredible, so much love radiating out of him.
Yeah. He told you, he told you something that was probably startling.
Yeah. He took my hand and he was crying and he said, "You made me feel like a composer for the first time."
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's won every kind of award you can imagine as a, well, lyricist and composer.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. One of the things that Sondheim always struggled with, which is, he talks about it in his bios and everything, is when he wrote all the lyrics to West Side Story and he got all this praise, he was so scared to be just categorized as a lyricist.
Right.
And so ever since he was struggling with that, but he tells me, "I don't know anything about jazz." I'm like, "Are you crazy? Everything you write is jazz, it's like the most intricate harmonies and melodies, all the languages there. He knows everything. He's something else." And when he said that to me, that was incredible, because I think he was just super happy to see a bunch of kids up on the stage having fun with his music.
Yeah, it's got to be very gratifying, and to see it performed at a high level, I would say as well,
Mm-hmm.
to really hear it in a different style at a very high level.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing some live stream concerts here in our coronavirus world, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm doing, just me and Rupert the Looper.
Oh, Rupert the Looper, ladies and gentlemen. He never gets tired, but sometimes he misses a beat.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm doing that every Friday at 3 p.m. Central Time.
And where could a person find that if they wanted to?
On my Instagram, on my Facebook.
All right.
Just live, it's there.
Check out Cyrille Aimee, they can find you.
Yeah.
Find those performances Fridays at 3 Central, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We are stoned out of time, I think, but it was great talking with you, sweetie.
Thank you. That went really fast. You're a great conversationalist. I don't know how to say.
Well, you say it very well. Thank you very much. And I hope that I'll be seeing you before a whole lot longer at Snug Harbor.
Me too.
Meanwhile, 3 o'clock on Fridays.
Thank you. Yes. See you then.